Welcome, Ron.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to one of our very first episodes of The Muster Room.
I'm excited to be a part of it.
You should be. Yeah. This is, honestly, I've been waiting for this. Yeah, it is a little bit. Yeah.
A little cocky, but it's okay.
I've been waiting for this personally for about 2 to 3 weeks now, and I can't tell you how excited I actually am that we're actually finally here at the Smoking Shields headquarters in Floral Park, New York, with what I believe is probably one of the coolest detectives on this job because of what you get to do. And we're going to get into that in a few minutes.
Yeah.
But
are you talking about me or Piper? Because
both of you.
He's slightly cooler than I am.
I'm not going to lie. He's also better looking.
He is.
And he's probably the bestest boy.
And he's chilled. Look at him. He's like, I'm cool.
Bestest, goodest boy.
The bestest, goodest boy in the largest police department in the world. That's a great title to have.
Yes. Yeah.
The bestest, goodest boy.
Bestest, goodest boy.
Yeah. Out of 37,000 others.
Can I be the bestest, goodest boy of the podcast?
You can be. You can identify as whatever you'd like.
Thank you.
Okay. We're in 2022 now. So, with that being said, again, Ron, welcome to the podcast officially.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you. Super excited to be able to interview you. I'm myself extremely curious about what you do and the training that you've gone through to essentially do what you do on a daily basis for the NYPD. So, with that being said.
Yeah, first, Ron, let's focus in on you for a second before we get to Piper. How long have you been on the job, and when did you come on, and tell us your background, why you got involved in law enforcement?
Well, let's see. I'm hitting my 24th year in the department come August 31st. To be completely honest, I went to college for criminal justice. I always kind of wanted to be a cop. I wasn't sure which direction I was going to go in.
Yeah.
I was taking all of the tests. I actually went through the process with Suffolk, and obviously that did not work out. So I came on to the police department, New York City Police Department in 1998, and there was a series of events that kind of led me to be here. I was primarily a patrol cop. I did some domestic violence. I did some school safety. And at some point, I had an opportunity to go to One Police Plaza where there was a unit called Members Outreach Services, which is now defunct. But from there, I was able to get over to the Employee Assistance Unit. And there's a little story behind that. But I'm really happy to be here right now. I've been in EAU for about 5 years now.
Yeah, that's a big step from somebody going from patrol into EAU. Is there the incident that happened? Is it something you want to talk about?
Oh no, it's just that I had met the lieutenant that runs EAU while I was at One Police Plaza, so it's nothing like specific and traumatic that brought me there, but it's something that I always had an interest in doing.
Yeah, it's a tough position for anybody to go into that and to deal with these things, and it's admirable.
Can you talk a little bit more about EAU, because I think a lot of those that are listening, being that they're probably from smaller departments, don't have the capabilities of what you have in the NYPD. So what exactly is EAU?
So the Employee Assistance Unit, and it's been under several different names. It was formerly Early Intervention. It's actually been around since the 70s in some shape or form. It originally started when they were actually reviewing the disciplinary records of police officers, and they were trying to determine what the underlying cause was of that. You know, instead of being so punitive, they're saying, hey, like these guys keep getting in trouble. Let's try to focus on why. So they kind of started interviewing these guys and trying to get to the root cause of where that trouble was coming from. So the unit started small and kind of evolved since then. It kind of evolved into the early intervention unit that it was before it was the employee assistance unit. And the reason why they changed that name is during the re-engineering project. They thought that intervention sounded a little intrusive, so they changed that to assistance, and that's the modern-day EAU as it stands now.
Okay.
So if there's an employee that's struggling or having an issue, they go to the EAU unit, or does the EAU unit identify these individuals and then go out and talk to them, or is it both?
Well, it's a little bit of both. So I'd like to think that at this point, everybody knows that we exist.
Yeah.
We do a lot of advertising. We have pens, we have keychains, we have posters all over the department. We do a lot of proactive outreach. So we'll go do roll calls. We try to get people to know that we exist and to earn their trust. Law enforcement is highly stigmatized in terms of mental health. People don't always come forward and
they won't ask for help.
Admit that they have a problem, especially, from my era. It's something that we just didn't do. We didn't talk about it. There was always the rubber gun squad and that stigma that went that if you go to these guys, you're going to lose your firearm, and that's just not true.
Yeah.
again, we try to get people to know we're here and to want to talk to us, and that's kind of been a challenge.
It's amazing how it's universal through all these police departments. NYPD, the biggest police department in the world, and you go down to where I was in a smaller township police department, and it's the same thing. It's stigmatized. People,
Right.
you can't ask for help. If you ask for help, you're going to lose promotional opportunities and all this stuff. So I can see that it's probably a very tough job for you to go out and maybe make those connections, but you have help.
Well, I wanted to get to that. So, I'd like to think that I'm decent at my job. I've been doing EAU for about 5 years now, and it's broken up into boroughs. And in a department with 36,000 sworn, that doesn't include civilians, and we don't discriminate between civilians, uniformed. Anybody can come to us for help, but primarily, we're going to these commands and we're trying. Sorry, pardon me. This guy has other plans. We're trying to make those connections, right?
Yeah.
So I would go to a roll call and I would peddle the unit and I would say, hey, listen, I'm Ron, I'm from EAU, and I would tell them all about the facts of the unit, and I would be all enthusiastic about, all right, everybody's going to come forward, everybody's going to want help, and it's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
You'll do a roll call and people will scatter, they'll take their posts, and I get it. I'm an outsider coming into your house, basically saying, hey, trust me, tell me what your problems are.
Right.
And in a highly stigmatized career, it's not easy. If you do that enough, people will say, hey, listen, this guy, Ron, he's not so bad. He keeps coming around here. Maybe I'll talk to him, and eventually maybe I can connect that individual that's going through something to resources. But now that I have Piper, it's a complete game changer,
So now,
to say the least.
your job extends more than, or it extends outside of the NYPD. You're able to help officers or civilians on the job with things that are occurring at home, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not just PTSD related to an on-the-job incident. It could be money issues. It can be domestic issues, anything along those lines.
It could really be anything. And, whenever I talk about the unit, I say we're the employee assistance unit. You can call us for anything. If you want to vent about a supervisor, do it. If you want to call and you have a child with special needs with autism, we're here to help. Mm-hmm. If you're going through something serious, we want to connect you to some resources. And we are, like I like to say, 98% confidential. That 2% being if anybody expressed us they were suicidal.
Yeah.
That's something that we would have to take immediate action on. We're mandated reporters. And anything criminal, we're still cops.
Of course.
If you call me up and say you're knocking off banks on your RDOs because
Right.
you can't pay your rent.
Yeah.
But, you guys are confidential. It's like, no, we're not.
Yeah, so Eric, don't bring up what you've done previously.
Yeah, try to avoid any
Damn.
criminality. I'm still on duty right now.
Yeah.
So.
Do you have the statistics of, so you said there's about 36,000 cops with the NYPD.
Sure.
How many of those per year do you from the EAU unit actually deal with on a daily basis? Maybe not you as a detective, but the unit as a whole.
We get thousands upon
Thousands?
thousands of calls every day. Well, not every day, every year.
Wow.
And especially lately, our phones are really ringing. It's a tough job. When you think about law enforcement, we have the highest rate of suicide, the highest rate of divorce, the highest rate of heart attacks. And right now, with everything that's going on, and defund the police, and politically, it's just a tough climate.
The good thing is, though, it's just you're getting those calls, and that's a
Right.
good
We
thing.
are. We're getting the calls, and you have to make every single person that calls that phone try to feel validated in some way. We can't solve everybody's problems, but we try to connect people to the resources and enable them to either solve their own problems or we help them manage what they have going on.
Right.
Have you seen an uptick since the whole defund movement has occurred?
I want to say yes. You know what? I don't want to get too political in this conversation just because I am on duty right now.
Right, of course.
But yeah, I want to say it's just been a real tough climate the last few years.
Right.
It's the phones have been ringing off the hooks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, it's been an uptick since probably. I mean, it's always been an issue, but I think it's been an uptick probably since about 2013,
2014. When I was in the academy. That's when officers Lou and Ramos from the NYPD were assassinated.
Yeah.
And all I've known personally in my 8 years in law enforcement has been this climate of negativity around law enforcement. Right. So I could only imagine how many calls you guys truly do get each year.
We get a ton, and we want to help everybody. And sometimes we can't, sometimes we can, but it's important that people know that we exist and that they trust the resources. And that's really the biggest hurdle, is getting people to know that help's available. And if you call EAU, you're not going to get jammed up. You're not going to lose your gun. The conversation is just a conversation. There's a lot of misinformation out there that cops don't really realize. And when I say cops, it's all ranks, all people in the department.
Yeah. Right.
Everybody. People don't know that you could be on medication on this job. Like, you can take antidepressants. You can speak to a therapist. You can proactively work on your mental health, and it's okay.
Right.
I'm going to use the word stigma a lot, but it's unfortunate that it's so highly stigmatized that people sometimes fear making that call than what they're actually suffering from.
Sure.
Which for me I think that's tragic. I bumped into so many people when I'm out doing these roll calls, when I'm out just going from command to command, and, hey, Ron, can I ask you a question?
Right.
Is this really confidential? Yes. Like, this is what's going on.
Yeah, they're scared to get labeled.
They're scared to get labeled, and they're scared to come forward.
Right.
I find that once they do come forward and actually start trusting the resources that are out there, they feel a whole lot better.
Now you've been on the job for quite some time, so I think I know the answers, but I'll ask you again anyway. Years ago, because I've been retired 10 years now, but I was on 31. When you have years ago, it used to be that the administration, I don't want to get political, but the administration didn't support the police officers, and that's where this whole stigma of today comes in. I think it's changed now. I think because you have this unit.
Yeah.
A lot of police departments are now putting these things in place. Have you seen that there is a change within the admin of the department itself that say, yeah, you know what, this is a real thing, let's get these guys help instead of punishing, because what they used to do, the rubber gun squad.
Yeah, I top of the table. Yes, I do.
Okay.
I think, so 2019, we took 10 suicides that year,
Right.
which is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And prior to 2019, the health and wellness unit didn't exist. So EAU existed, but now we are under the umbrella of the health and wellness unit, and that unit exists solely to promote wellness for law enforcement, members of law enforcement. And there are a lot of proactive things that they have in that unit that people could take advantage of, and it's gaining momentum, which I really like to see.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I'm not trying to pat you or the job on the back, but I'll be very honest. I think that the NYPD is probably one of the leading agencies in the world that's truly taking a stand with law enforcement suicides, PTSD, suicide awareness, and they're actually doing something about it.
They are doing a lot of things about it, and again, 2019, they knew they had to do something, 10 suicides. So they started the health and wellness section, which falls under Deputy Inspector Mark Walkner, who is probably the greatest human being that I've ever met.
Great guy.
He cares so much about the health and welfare of police officers. And a few of the things that they started doing, and I think this is really starting to work, is they started examining these heavy jobs, critical incidents, things like homicides, jobs involving children, things that you could have a stress reaction to, and they proactively started bringing these cops in, and we have clinicians now that work under that umbrella of the health and wellness section. So they'll actually do a debriefing with these cops just to check in, and that falls under Dr. Adams, who again is someone that really cares.
So within that unit, there is a critical incident stress management team. You're
Team.
saying. That's awesome.
Yeah, so they proactively bring cops in to try to say, hey, listen, we care about you. Would you like to talk about the incident? Is there anything that you would like in terms of resources? And I think it's a program that's really working.
Have you received any phone calls from other agencies across the United States who have said, hey, we see what you do. How do we start our own?
I've received a lot of calls about the dog.
Right.
So people are calling and they're asking, hey, what do you do with them? Is it working? How do the cops take to it? And that was one of my biggest concerns is, there are a lot of different canine units in this department.
Right.
There's apprehension and drug sniffing and bomb and all kinds of dogs. And now we have, the hug squad.
Yeah.
We have the dog that you're supposed to pet and cuddle with and roll around on the floor with.
Sure.
And you know how, again, stigmas, how law enforcement guys could be. We put these uniforms on, we have this persona of strength. These guys, it doesn't look like they'd have an emotion in their body. And I'll go to these places and I'll say, hey, this is Piper. And next thing you know, the burliest guy that you would think, again, does not have an emotion in his whole body is rolling around on the floor, rubbing his belly. And it's just. So my old lieutenant, Lieutenant Salisbury, said that these dogs act as a social lubricant. Then they told me I had to stop saying lubricant. So now we say social catalyst, but it's really true.
Yeah.
You know, these canines, we have 3 of them. We have Piper, Glory, and Jenny. You know, they really are the bridge that connects us to people. And that's what we want. We want to create those connections. We want to get people to say, hey, listen, you know, all right, now that I've pet the dog, what do you do?
Right.
You know, who are you? Like, tell me about your unit. And it's working.
Yeah. So I think this is the perfect transition.
Yeah, tell us about Piper.
Let's talk about Piper, because the real reason why you're here today is not you.
It's Piper.
Yeah, you're a good-looking guy, but
I don't really exist anymore. It's all about the dog.
Let's talk about Detective Piper.
Sure.
How did he come about? How did this whole unit come about? Because from the research that I've done, the NYPD is the only law enforcement agency in the country that's doing this right now, or at least you essentially started it.
We are definitely the biggest municipality that's doing it. I'm not sure if we're the first. I know that other agencies have incorporated therapy canines into their arsenal, but not exclusively. So they're like Swiss Army knife dogs. They're multi-purpose, so they'll bring them out into the community affairs. You know, they'll bring them to schools to interact with cops. Like, these are exclusively for the NYPD and NYPD personnel only.
Yep.
So a little background on Piper. He, at 8 weeks old, he went into a maximum security prison.
What'd he do?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
Wow.
You stole my best joke.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Oh, he is a comedian.
So at 8 weeks old, this organization is called Puppies Behind Bars. Fantastic. The dogs go to live with inmates, essentially, when they're very, very young. And the inmates train them, they socialize them, they teach them all the commands. There's a prevalence of stress and PTSD in prisons, obviously.
Right.
So the dogs, you know, are able to be around these environments, kind of pick up on some of the cues. They're highly, highly socialized by the time we get them. In theory, there's around 10,000 hours of socialization. Did I get that one right?
You got it.
Yeah. Socialization.
Socialization. By the time that we get them, they know over 50 commands. And I had to go into the prison and train for 2 weeks in a maximum security prison.
Wow.
It was incredibly intimidating at first. You know, you have to strip down of all law enforcement. You can't wear any gang colors. You know, you have to go through the gates just like everybody else. There's no special treatment going in, full search.
Do the prisoners know that you're a law enforcement officer?
So not the general population, but I'm pretty sure that they have an idea. You know, we're a little separated from Gen Pop, I guess. You know, it was in a classroom setting.
Right.
But that intimidation went away very, very quickly.
Yeah.
I was so taken back at how professional and how caring these inmates were. You know, they lived with these dogs for over a year.
Right.
And when they released the dog to us, it was an incredibly emotional experience, both for them and for us.
Now, so essentially, you know, you're taking prisoners who were locked up by police officers.
Yeah.
And now they're training the dogs that are going back into the law enforcement community. So how do you think they felt about that?
You know, it was really rewarding, man. And I'm not going to lie. It was going in, I didn't know what to expect. You know, you get paired one-on-one with an inmate. And, you know, the inmate that I was working with, again, incredibly professional, incredibly polite. So happy to be doing what they were doing. And it's true.
Do you keep in touch with him? That
we're not
individual?
allowed. Yeah, we're not allowed. Yeah.
That's a shame.
I can, I think, email pictures to Puppies Behind Bars, and they'll vet them, and they'll send them over to the prison. But
I mean, I get it, but it's a shame.
Yeah, it's a relationship that you can't really foster.
Yeah, because as an active police officer,
Yeah.
you can't have any communication with someone who's locked up. Yeah.
So, you know, you have to know that you're going to go into a prison and take constructive criticism from a prisoner.
That's got to be interesting.
You know, like they're essentially your boss for 2 weeks. So it was
role reversal.
Yeah, it was wild. You know, and it was training in the prison all day, and then going out and doing real world scenarios with the dogs at night, and a lot of exercise and a lot of wrecking the dogs, which is they have to get a lot of recreation as well. So the program really works. They essentially started pairing them with one-on-one with veterans.
Okay.
You know, veterans with severe PTSD, guys who couldn't leave the house, guys with extreme anxiety. So these dogs worked very well in those environments, in those scenarios. And they just recently started releasing them to police departments.
Okay.
So, you know, he's essentially performs that same function, but on a broader spectrum.
For 36,000 others.
Yeah, exactly. If you ask me, we don't have enough of these dogs. they do such an amazing job. You know, the lieutenant, of course, said they do a better job at my job than I did.
Yeah.
Which is true. You know, I could go in, as I was saying earlier, and talk to a roll call and just say, hey, listen, you know, I'm here, I'm Ron, I'm here to help.
Yeah.
You know, you guys are all cops, you get it, you know.
Yeah.
But Piper comes in and it's, can I take his picture?
Right.
Can I roll around with him? You know,
I've seen it personally myself.
so.
He's chill. He's a cool dude.
Yeah, he really is.
Yeah, and he is, like,
And smart as hell. Because you said
Yeah.
so Piper knows you said about 50 commands?
About 50
So
commands.
what are some of those commands?
well, a lot of them are based around, again, those one-on-one pairings to make people feel secure out in public. So if I'm, you know, at a grocery store and I say peekaboo, like Piper will like literally come up between my legs and poke his
Really?
head up. Or if I say get my back, you know, he'll turn around and face outwards.
Wow.
Or block, which is he'll lay down on my feet if I'm at a cash register, or you know, in some kind of scenario where I need him, that security of having him close.
Okay.
And then he knows all the regular ones sit,
Right.
you know, stay.
Now, can Piper like detect high levels of stress or blood pressure or anything along those lines?
So I'll give you an example, and of course I won't name any names,
Sure.
because obviously I can't do that. You know, we are a confidential unit. But I was doing an interview with a sergeant. I can say that much, right?
Yeah, of
You know,
course.
I'm not saying any names.
No.
And you know, whenever somebody has a change of duty status, one of the things that my unit does is we'll just check in on them. You know, a change of duty status in the New York City Police Department can be a traumatic event. You know, guys can be suspended or modified or out for years.
Right.
You know, it's punitive, right? But whenever that happens, whether you're coming off suspension or you're modified, we'll just check in.
Yeah.
You know, there's a little uptick in suicide for guys that are in that category.
Well, it's a pretty traumatic event.
It can be traumatic, right? So I was talking to this individual, and we have to ask it because it's a hard question to ask, but you know, and it's a straightforward question. Are you experiencing any thoughts of suicide? Have you ever thought about suicide? And this individual just kind of started to tear up a little bit.
Yeah.
And without being asked to do so, Piper stood up, and he was kind of about where he is now with me, and walked over and just laid down at this guy's feet,
Wow.
and just kind of looked right up at him.
Wow.
And at that point, this guy just, you know, it was like a deluge, just burst into tears and,
Yeah.
kind of, you know, admitted that he was going through something, but he instinctively knew that this guy was in distress.
So Piper is not actually trained to do that. The dog just.
Well, I mean,
knew.
again, you know, they're raised in prisons, and there's
Sure.
a prevalence of PTSD and stress in prisons, and you know, the prisoners are very good at you know, at what they do.
Yeah,
instructing
clearly.
these dogs. Yeah, and it's this specific breed that they use. He's a Labrador Retriever, one of the most empathetic creatures I've ever met in my life. Like,
Man's best
just
friend.
he just kind of intuitively knows, like, all right, you know, I can tell that you're upset. I'm just gonna come hang out with you.
Wow.
My favorite dog of all time that I own was a yellow lab. So
Oh, yeah.
I look at Piper like I love.
Oh
that
no,
dog.
they're unbelievable.
They're so
man.
good.
Yeah.
They really are. My wife gets a little upset about like this, like the hair.
Oh, well, yeah. This
gonna-
comes with the job.
Does Piper swim a lot?
I try. Well, I live on the North Shore, Long Island. I take him swimming as much as I
My
possibly
dog, I
can.
couldn't keep my dog out of the water.
Yeah,
so
he loves it. You know, we don't have as many opportunities as I would like, but
Yeah.
I just bought him a doggy pool, so hopefully that'll help.
So now you said the NYPD has 3 dogs, correct?
Yes.
Are each dog, do they all have their own personalities?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jenny is. We'd like to call her like the mother of the group. She's a little older.
Okay.
She's 6, a little bit more mature. She actually was paired with a veteran before we got her. Puppies Behind Bars has a policy that if you feel like you can't take care of the dog anymore, they don't ask any questions. They just take them right back.
Okay.
So Jenny was brought back into the mix.
Mm-hmm.
She was actually in team training with us. So there were 6 potential handlers and 12 dogs. So they kind of rotate you with different dogs to see how you're going to do.
Okay.
So Jenny came back with us, which we were very happy about. She's a little bit more mature. She doesn't take any shit either.
Yeah.
I can say that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You could definitely curse.
So she,
The muster room.
you know,
Shit, crap.
she's pretty amazing at keeping the other 2 dogs in check. You know, she just has that like mom
Yeah.
type of feel
Right.
about her. And then there's Glory, who's the latest acquisition to the unit.
Okay.
She's a little bit on the younger side.
Sure.
A little wild, but she's high energy, and you know, which fits her handler, Teresa. I think you met Teresa.
I've met Teresa, yeah.
Yeah, Teresa's a high energy person as well. So you know, it was a good pairing.
Are all 3 Labradors or?
All Labrador Retrievers.
Yeah.
So he's an American version, and then there's the English version, which is a little shorter, a little stouter. He's tall and lean, so they've picked the tallest dog and put him with the shortest guy. So I guess, you know, yeah, and Piper's just mellow.
Yeah.
You know, this is about as excited as he gets.
Now, and you may have answered this, but I don't remember what your answer was. How did you get in specifically to the dog unit? Now, you went into this EAU, but to handle a dog, did you ask? Did you volunteer? Did they say come to you and ask you? Did you test all that?
Well, so Lieutenant Janice Salisbury, who was the commanding officer of the unit, she's responsible for this program.
Okay.
She fought tooth and nail for this. It was.
Shout out to her.
Yeah, seriously.
Seriously.
And she just retired. She was an amazing resource.
Congratulations to her also.
Seriously. An amazing resource, an amazing human being, and without her, none of this would have been possible. But she fought tooth and nail to make this happen.
Yeah.
And you're fighting with the bureaucracy of, the department.
Sure.
A lot of red tape, a lot of 49s to be written.
Yep.
A lot of begging, a lot of other departments are starting to do this.
Right.
And then COVID happened, and that probably set us back a year and a half. So right before COVID happened, we had gone upstate to meet with the agency and just say we might be the potential handlers.
Right.
But to answer your question, there was a lot of begging, really.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, I really want to do this. I really want to do this. I really want to do this. Okay. Just gotta run.
Shut the hell up.
Well, so the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right?
So,
there you go.
She was looking for handlers within the unit. One of the prerequisites is you have to be an EAU already to do this. You have to be kind of a seasoned EAU employee to do this. So, again, hey, Jana, I'd really like to do this, to the point where she finally, I think she sent me just to shut me up.
It worked out.
Yeah, but it worked
job.
out, man. Yeah.
That's great.
That's awesome.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So, his technical rank is a detective, correct?
That is correct.
So now, does he have the same protection or qualities as any other detective or police officer on the job? How's that work?
Oof, that's a little bit of a loaded question.
Oh,
Same qualities as every detective on the job?
Well, yeah. I have a feeling Piper's probably smarter than most detectives on the job.
Well, let's just say he's a very smart dog. He has the same rank as the handler, so I got promoted and then he got promoted. A little bit of jealousy there. It took me about 20 years to get promoted. It took him 4 days.
Yeah.
But I guess he had a hook. So
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So if you were to get promoted, let's say to sergeant, would Piper also become a sergeant?
So there's actually a problem with that.
Okay.
So sergeants, with the dog, you get a stipend.
Sure.
For taking care of him. Because, 24/7 I'm with this guy.
Right.
23:45 when I'm not showering. That's about it.
Yeah.
And that goes for cleaning up dog poop off duty and taking him for walks.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
all the responsibilities that go with caring for something for 24 hours. But contractually, sergeants can't receive that stipend. So I think that's
that is
something
an
they're
issue.
trying to work on.
Yeah, sure.
Because, we do have some sergeants in the unit, that are backup handlers.
Right.
Who would, love to do this full time.
Yeah.
But I think it's a union issue.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we won't get into that.
It's above,
that's definitely something we don't want to talk about.
It's above my pay grade,
Yeah,
man.
sure.
Anthony Manza, who is a sergeant backup handler, is a great person, and I know that he's interested in doing this. So hopefully one day they'll amend that. I don't know.
Well, let's fingers crossed.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
Sure.
if they're good handlers, then nothing should be holding them back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you have to go through additional training once you have them? Do you continuous? I mean, what's the continuous training that you guys are going through? Or is it just real world exercise, and that's where he's keeping his skills up?
Well, so the initial training that we got was the 2 weeks
Yeah.
in the prison, right? And that was just the fundamentals. Like this is
Sure.
this is Therapy Dog 101, and we had to take that and apply that to a real world environment. I don't know if it's appropriate to mention this, but I will. But one of the first tests that these dogs had, and I was relatively new as a handler, and he was relatively new as one of our canines. But Mora and Rivera,
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah. Go by all means. Yeah.
So Detectives Mora and Rivera were killed in the line of duty. We immediately deployed to the hospital. And one of the things that I like to mention about that scenario is when that happened, the sergeant went over the air and actually requested EAU's response over the air, which is something that wouldn't happen when I came on.
Right.
It's just, would not.
Well, great job by that sergeant for recognizing that they needed you there.
And I give that guy, I don't know who it was.
Yeah.
I give him props all the time because that guy recognized that this is a traumatic event.
Right.
And let's get these guys down.
Yeah, he had the bigger picture in mind for sure.
So I think that's testament to saying, all right, whatever we're doing, the outreach we're doing to kind of promote this unit and the trust and the bonds that we're creating are working.
Right.
People are saying, hey, let's get these guys over here. So we came to the hospital with Piper and Jenny. Right? 2 dogs, probably 4,000 people there. Every command emptied. There were civilians there. That every supervisor was there. All the brass was there. what I noticed right away is, we're peer counselors. We're not doctors.
Yep.
We're here to, console you, help you. We do have some grief counselors in the office. If you're going through something, we want to let you know that we're here, whatever that might look like for you. If you just want to talk, if you just want me to refer you to something outside the department, maybe. But what I really noticed was people were taking comfort in just petting him and just not having to say a word.
Yeah.
And that I really, really appreciated. People who knew more on Rivera, who were in that intense moment of grief, maybe didn't want to talk, but took so much comfort in just petting an animal.
Yeah.
Then I met Rivera's widow. And again, without being asked to do so, Piper crawled right in her lap, man, and stayed there for an hour. And she just cried into his fur.
Wow.
And she was afforded that opportunity to grieve with him present. And there's just something so comforting about being with one of these dogs.
Yeah.
You can see right now, he's just kind of crawled up in my lap.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And, when you do pet a dog, and I'm not huge on psychology, but your brain releases a chemical, like those feel-good chemicals.
Endorphins?
Like, the endorphins called oxytocin, and
You get those when you exercise
Yeah.
too often.
Yeah,
even though you don't do
I
that
don't
very
exercise.
often.
And my high school teacher right now would be very proud of me for remembering it's called an endorphin.
That's true.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thanks.
Yeah. So and that was kind of ground zero for me. Like, I'm like, this is going to work.
Yeah.
People are going to take to this. It was just amazing to see.
That was like the ultimate test.
Yeah. It really, unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
But following that event, we started to get a lot of requests. Hey, can you bring the dogs down?
Right.
Can you bring them to the command? Can you bring them to the widow's house?
Right.
Can you bring them to our roll call? And it's yes.
Of course.
we can.
Yeah.
We're there to support you guys.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah, and that's really the foundation behind the AU. We're here to support you.
Right.
Whatever it is you're going through, we will help you manage it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So, where do you see this unit in the future? What would you like to see going forward there? Now I know that you don't get to call those shots, right? Because it's above your pay grade. But in a utopian world,
yeah, well, that's a tough question.
More dogs, obviously, right?
I would like to see more canines. I don't know if that. There's talk about us getting a fourth.
Mm-hmm.
What I'd like to see in the unit is just what I mentioned earlier, is that people know we're here, but we'd really like to earn your trust.
Yeah.
We want you to know, and by we, it's the department, the entire department. We want you to know that we're here for you guys.
right?
Our phone number, 24/7. If you call our number at EAU,
What is that number?
646-610-6730, you will get a human being on the phone if it's 2 a.m. on Christmas morning. And you will get an empathetic person who is there to listen to you and help you, again, manage whatever you've got going on. So where does the unit going to go? We just got a brand new commanding officer. She seems incredibly nice and incredibly empathetic, and I'm looking forward to forming a working relationship with her. But we did lose a lot of people in the unit.
Right.
We lost some people to the vaccination mandate.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we lost some people to the beach detail.
Yep.
And a couple people are retiring. So we're a little understaffed right now. I'd like to see some more personnel in the unit, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it sounds like you need it.
We're thin. We're stretched thin. you
Yeah.
know? And it's for people who absorb the stress of the entire department. It's not easy doing this. You know?
Yeah.
We all sleep with our phones next to our beds because that phone can ring at any second.
What's it like on you? I mean, having to deal with the stress of an entire department, and there's 3 of you that have these canines. What's that toll on you?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Well, there's obviously something called compassion fatigue, which, you continue to see other people stress over and over and over again. It does have an effect, but we're very good about kind of counseling each other, talking to each other. I have a take-home therapy dog, so that kind of works out for me.
Yeah.
But if it's an issue,
Yeah.
if let's say you've gone out for 3 or 4 days in a week or whatever it is there an issue where you say I can't, and can you say somebody else go for me? Or
Yeah, we're pretty good about policing ourselves.
Good.
We are at the forefront of all these critical incidents.
Yeah.
If there's a shooting, we're there. If there's a heavy job, we're there. If unfortunately, all the suicides, we're there. We're dealing with the families and the cops and the commands and the roll calls, and all the responses following. So it can be a lot to absorb, but again, we are the people that are connected to the resources and that, kind of connect people to the resources. So we like to practice what we preach, if that makes any sense. We're very big on resilience and wellness and practices that promote those things, that promote resilience and that promote wellness. So if we don't practice what we preach, what good are we to the rest of the department, really?
Sure. Yeah.
So
now, if there's any departments out there that are listening, and we know you are,
of course.
If they wanted to create their own EAU unit, or if they wanted to create their own canine unit that's specific for grief counseling and for PTSD, how would they go about actually doing that?
Well, they could reach out to me direct. If I'm going to give my email here.
Yeah, by all means, please.
It's ronald.thomas@nypd.org. And I do get a lot of those requests, especially about the dogs. Like, how did you get the dog? How can we get a dog? What does your unit do specifically? And we have the sheer numbers to have a unit that does this full time. Mm-hmm. A lot of the smaller municipalities can't spare one, let alone like 5 people or however many they could spare to be full-time peer support. So again, they have to be Swiss Army knives. They have to be peer support and community outreach and patrol cops. So it's difficult, but I'm more than willing to answer any questions that anybody might have if they decide that they want to start a full-time peer support.
Brings up another question that I got. Does the NYPD have like a mutual aid policy when it comes to grief support for the dogs? If, let's say, a smaller agency in the New York metropolitan area were to call and say, hey, listen, we just had a traumatic incident. Your dogs might be able to help some of our guys and gals in blue. Would you be able to go to that?
That's something I'm really glad you brought that up because I believe that there should be. We're living in this time where these mass shootings seem to happen every single day.
Yeah.
That one that was in Texas was just awful.
Mm-hmm.
And every day there seems to be another one.
Right.
I would be more than happy to bring Piper out to Texas or, wherever he's needed to help anyone or any, our brothers and sisters in blue who may not have access to a therapy canine.
Yeah.
That would be above my pay grade.
Right.
But if it's an option, I would hope that we would be available.
So there's no harm in asking. If an agency needs the help, they could reach out.
There's no harm in asking, and we have a pretty good team. We fall under DCER, great people working that unit. I'm sure that if there was a tragedy that needed our services, again, I can't answer that, but I would hope that it would be something that we could help with.
Yeah.
Because you just mentioned it, I'm the bigger departments that have the more resources. Have they reached out to you guys and said, hey? Or you haven't really heard from any other departments that you know of? I mean, I'm sure maybe higher up has, but
in terms of therapy canines,
or even an EA unit, EAU unit, or the dogs in the larger departments, like say Atlanta or Dallas or Miami.
Yeah,
they have the resources. Have they reached out? Do you know of?
Yeah, so we just had a meeting with Chicago PD.
That's also cool.
And they kind of wanted an overview on our EAU program and the therapy canine and what we do and how we deploy the dogs.
That's awesome.
We've been in contact with LAPD. We were just down in Atlanta for it's the International Association of Chiefs of Police.
IACP.
Yeah, so we actually presented at that, and after that, it was just.
And to me, because and Austin knows my background, I am a police suicide prevention counselor and everything. And for me to hear all this stuff, just it makes me happy to hear that departments are actually looking into this and being more proactive than they were before.
Yeah, and
it's good to hear.
It's suicide is one of those things that we have to talk about, and it's again highly stigmatized, and from what I've found in my travels and my time in EAU is that it's not really talked about. Cops are very good at hiding in plain sight.
Absolutely.
And that's unfortunate. We want to get people to talk about their problems, and the more we normalize it, and the more we tell people, it's okay that if you're not okay, that we could hopefully, break those walls down and get people to come forward and say, yeah, maybe I am feeling a certain way.
Yeah.
Maybe I would like to use some resources.
Yeah, that actually warms my heart to hear that.
Yes.
Because, when I left, it wasn't happening.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
Yes, we had 10 suicides in 2019, and we average about 4 a year. You don't hear about the ones that we prevented.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
So, and I think that's something that we need to mention is that, the Employee Assistance Unit has programs that, allow cops who are either, you don't have to be strictly suicidal to meet the criteria, but you could be stressed or depressed or going through something postpartum. maybe something that prevents you from being full duty. These programs work. You know, they allow people to take an opportunity to kind of push that pause button and focus on their wellness and focus on themselves. So, again, 10 suicides in 2019. You haven't heard about 11, 12, 13, and 14, but those are people that utilized these programs and went back out full duty. So it's not a career killer if you call us.
Are you able to track in some way, shape, or form how many you've actually prevented? Is that even a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't give you raw numbers, but you know, our confidential sick programs, you know, we utilize it quite often.
Right.
You know, and we can go back and look at those numbers.
Sure.
I'm not sure if I'm allowed to mention that.
Yeah. Okay.
The actual raw numbers, but
but it is tracked nonetheless.
Well, we don't keep any records in the unit, and that's one of the things that we like to showcase is that, you know, there's no paper trail that's going to lead back to the department.
Right.
You know, so that's how confidential we are.
Okay.
So, you know, we do know how many that there are, yes.
It's more just for yourself.
Yeah.
Knowing like, hey, listen, look how many lives I was able to save, or our unit essentially was able to save.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty amazing. You know, so we do get actively suicidal people calling the unit.
Yeah.
You know, and that, again, that means that it's working.
Well, again, with 36,000 plus, and that's not even including the civilians, right? So I think the NYPD has almost 50,000 members.
About 50,000 in total.
Yeah. So I mean, that's essentially a small city that you guys are taking care of.
It's unbelievable, man.
Yeah.
And you know, again, our numbers are kind of dwindling. So
Right.
circling back to you saying, where would you like to see this unit go? I'd like to see it expand.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I have to mention the peer support program. You know, Detective Shane Rogers and a few of the other, Jeff Thompson, I don't know, you know, he just retired.
Yep.
Fantastic guy. Created this peer support program where we're trying to get, it's a 4-day class, kind of an abridged version of what we do, but we're trying to get as many people trained as we can to be in every command, in every building, in every agency within the department. So you're a conduit to our unit. So, you know, if anybody listening, you know, either from other agencies or in this department is interested in doing that, they can contact the Employee Assistance Unit. We can kind of steer them in the right direction. But you can get trained as a certified, you know, peer support officer, where you'd have the suicide prevention piece, and you'd be able to recognize and hopefully be a trusted member of your command that people might come forward to and say, hey, listen, you know, whoever you are, you know, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
And they would essentially connect that individual to us.
And that's per command. Every command would have that.
We're trying to get as many out there as we can.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, I think they've trained over 400
wow.
peer support officers as it stands now, and we have a ton of requests to train more.
Yeah.
And other agencies, it's pretty amazing. Other agencies are kind of picking up on that.
Yeah.
I know that Shane Rogers just went out to Nassau County and kind of trained them.
Great.
And peer support. So it's kind of sweeping the nation.
Yeah.
This idea of peer support and finding a trusted individual that's going to listen to you and give that empathetic shoulder and say, hey, listen, man, I get it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a cop too. I get what you're going through. You know, let me guide you in the right direction.
Yeah. Now, Eric, people probably don't know this, but Eric actually identifies as a furry. And is there any way that we can get him trained as a support canine? Is that possible?
Yeah, you know, he looks a little furry right now. I think we probably could. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, on Saturday nights he wears that long tail. I've seen him out at the bars before.
Yeah, he's got the collar.
I wear it at home. Yeah. I enjoy it.
He's got the collar and the leash at home and all that.
He goes to like the Comic-Con for the furries. I've seen it.
I didn't even know what a furry was till just right now.
Really?
To be honest with you.
Oh, I guess I'm the only one that knows him. We'll talk about
What
that
a
off
fetish
air.
you have.
I'm sure we can make that happen.
All right. Well, Detective Thomas, it's been a pleasure for having you here. Again, can you give the number for those who may need it in the future?
Sure. It's 646-610-6730. That's 24/7. Please don't hesitate to call. It could be for anything. It could be a question. It could be for a family member. If you're retired, it could be anonymous. You don't have to leave your name.
That's great for the retired also. That's phenomenal. That's great because I know that statistically the suicide rate for retirees is extremely high.
Something that's hard to track, you know?
Yeah.
It really is. You know, you move out of state and, you know, there's accidental discharges and there's all kinds of things. But
Right.
It's something that's really hard to track.
That's great. Well, it seems like the unit's doing a phenomenal job. Keep up the great work.
We're trying.
Yeah.
We wholeheartedly support it. So is there anything that we can do on our side of the table to help EAU, by all means, let us know.
I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, we appreciate you. We appreciate all the hard work because, like Joe said earlier, only 3 of you working for a small city is a phenomenal feat.
Yeah, it's we're spread thin.
Yeah.
But you know, it's incredibly rewarding, and I don't know how I managed to do this, but
Well, you're doing it. You're doing it. You're doing a good job.
Somehow you manage.
I wholeheartedly appreciate
Of course.
you
So,
guys listening, and hopefully the message will get out there.
a big shout out to EAU. Huge shout out to the NYPD for allowing this to happen in the first place.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
we look forward to talking to you again in the future for sure.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on the Muster Room. Another great episode, and we'll see you guys soon.